I remember doing that documentary with Rich, and Tully had said something so poignant. He says, the thing is that it's the most anxiety-ridden process.
Yeah.
Mixing a song, it's listening to it and then listening to it again and then re-listening to it and then taking it home in the car and listening to it on the way back to the studio, listening to it some more, tweaking, and never knowing if you have it right.
Yeah, and you never do have it right. That's the thing, because 5 years from now, you'll go, why didn't I do that?
Right.
Why didn't I turn that one knob like 1 dB? That would have been so much better.
You think like Survivor, or like, man, we should have turned down the tambourine in Eye of the Tiger. It's like the loudest tambourine in music ever.
Yeah. As an engineer, I can tell you tambourines are just the devil's instrument.
Really?
I mean, God, it doesn't matter how quiet you hit them. They're spiking and peaking. And,
Right.
Oh, my God.
From the business capital of the world, the Big Apple, New York's Middle Tennessee, it says here. Sounds riveting. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. Mostly.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Matt Wilson, as always, for providing the voiceover for this lustrous program. Not even sure what that word means, lustrous. But I just say it. Ignorantly, I guess. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, where we talk to Middle Tennessee businesses, business owners, professionals, entrepreneurs. We have real conversations that meander. We have a general direction and timeline, if you will, but we do have offshoots because that's what makes it interesting. You never know what may come up, and you got to chase those rabbit holes. This is a video and audio podcast. Check us out at MMTBP.com. That's MMTBP.com. I am your host, Jim McCarthy, with JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com, and it's your show.go. If you want a podcast like this one, check us out there. That's what we do. We build podcasts. We put them together. We record them, all that fun stuff, just like this one. And today, if you are in the music business, especially looking for all sorts of different revenue streams and diversifying your talents, other than, in addition to the norm, this is a good episode for you. Our guest today is Jeremy Little. He's a producer, singer, composer, multi-instrumentalist whose work spans multiple genres and formats. It's almost read that as genre.
See, that's something new we could do.
There we go.
It's genre.
I'm telling you, you just never go where this kind of goes. You've got over 7,000, his music has appeared over 7,000 episodes of television, as well as hundreds of commercials. Good chance that you're going to be familiar with his work. So you've been on you've sang on Operation New Me in the Lego Ninjago movie, playing banjo with David Arquette on The Gong Show. Whole bunch of different, you work with JJ Abrams and his company Bad Robot. This is all pretty much up to date, I'm taking it, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Let's go with that. Sure, why not? So how are you, sir? Thanks for coming all the way out here. You're up in Greenbrier. My goodness.
Yeah.
That's a haul.
It is, but it was worth it to see you, Jim.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. And we have a mutual friend with Mr. Rich Redmond.
Oh, yeah.
Need to get him back on the podcast at some point.
Well, yeah, Rich can talk. Right?
He can.
So, yeah.
He's always a pleasant guest, full of good nuggets, wisdom nuggets. He's got a lot of experience in the business, and
he does. In fact, when I have a question for business, I call Rich usually.
Isn't that the truth? I mean, he really is kind of like that guy. If you want to get in the music business, not just drumming and making a living here on the musician circuit, when it comes to the business of music, how to conduct yourself, his whole crash course for success speaks to the whole nature of being very successful in any walk of life: commitment, relationships, attitude, skill, and hunger. Although I did tell him recently they are kind of out of order, but you got to make it, say something.
You got to make it work for the anagram.
Actually. So basically, he introduced us way back at his house one time. I saw you walking around. You're a very stylish gentleman.
Oh, thank you.
And you were wearing like the derby hat for a while.
Yeah.
I believe that was a derby.
Yeah. Well, was it a derby? I can't remember, but I have many hats.
Many hats.
You caught me on a non-hat day, which is unusual.
Do you normally wear hats?
I like hats. I've liked them since I was a kid. I've never not had a hat.
Right.
So, yeah. So when they came into style, that was good times for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just getting back into hats myself, usually with my size head. I've got an actual 2-foot melon. We've measured it once.
Hey.
It's 24 inches around.
All right.
Whenever I get a hat that fits and it works, I run with it.
Yeah, a hat that fits. Now, that's the thing. Yeah. I try on 50 hats before I buy one.
Really?
Yeah, it takes a while.
I would imagine.
Yeah. I don't know what's unusual about my head, but it takes a while.
Well, I would imagine you're particular about how it looks at, how it sits, and how you feel about it.
I am. I'm relatively vain, so I.
It's not what I was implying, but you know.
No, go ahead and say it. You don't have to imply it. I am relatively vain, and
Right.
I like to look a certain way. So,
But you know what? That's part of your brand.
it is,
And
yeah.
people remember you. Today you're wearing a Danzig shirt,
Yeah.
with a cool polka dot little lapel stuffy thing.
Yeah.
You got a green flower lapel, or like a, I don't know what you call that, like a pin.
lapel pin.
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah,
and like a velour purpley jacket.
yeah. So all things that could get you arrested in a lot of places.
But
So,
you know it works,
yeah.
man.
All right.
You walk in, you definitely got a style that it's like I just never could wrap my head around a style for myself. Just middle-aged dad bod, I guess. Slightly beyond.
I do have a story here, and it's when I first started. I started playing gigs when I was in my teen years, 13, 14, and when I first graduated to playing bars, when I hit whatever age that was, I got in this band and I was playing at a gig, and it was, in bars, they give you like a ticket where you get a little discount on your drink or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I played this place. I got off stage. I walked 30 feet to the bar. I gave him my ticket, and he said, and he charged me full price for my drink. And I said, no, I was in the band. And he goes, what band? And I said, the band that was just up there. And he goes, no, I don't think so. And then it dawned on me, like, am I really that forgettable that I can walk 30 feet and the guy completely forgets who I am?
Oh, wow.
So then I hired a stylist to help me dress, and she kind of taught me all the what to do. And I went to this kind of shishi hair place, and we sat down with a Rolling Stone magazine and picked out the haircut. And I was driving a forklift at the time for $7 an hour, but
Right.
somehow I was spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on my look. So the next time I played that same bar, not only did I not have to use my ticket, but I didn't have to pay for drinks at all at that point.
Because you had the look to it.
Yeah, I had the look, and the drinks were free from that point on.
That's the thing, is like when you go out with Rich, and anybody who knows Rich knows this, he always looks like a rock star.
Yeah.
Like he definitely has the aura of, okay, he's somebody. I just can't put my finger on it, And if people who know who he is, they go, oh, that's Rich.
Yeah.
But for those who don't know who he is, they go, he's somebody.
Yeah.
There's like a mystery about it.
It helps, I mean.
Nobody does that for me at all. I blend right in.
Well, yeah, I mean.
I'm like the ends of a loaf of bread. I get touched, but I get ignored and thrown away.
Well, here's the thing. You're wearing a hat.
I am.
It will astonish you how much the hat changes the way people perceive you.
It really does.
Strangers will come up to you and talk to you about your hat.
Yeah.
Because the bar is so low. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I discovered being a guy. Most people are dressed like they're on their way to a barbecue.
Right.
But if you put on, say, a jacket, even over a Danzig t-shirt like I have,
it freaking works, man.
people will want to talk to you about it.
See, we have an event coming up that's West Coast Cowboy, I think they called it. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to figure that out, my wife and I. My wife, she could dress up and look like $1 million.
Right.
She's just that good at it. I, on the other hand, and maybe I'm just being too self-deprecating, I just, I don't want to be comfortable. That's it.
Yeah.
Just give me comfort. I would rock a t-shirt. I would have to slim down a little bit to rock it even better, but I could be the fat guy in a t-shirt and a nice sport jacket or something,
Right. Yeah.
Or do what Redmond did back in the day and wear like the vest with the t-shirt,
Yeah.
I don't know if I could pull that off.
Don't do the vest.
Not the vest? It's out?
Yeah. Don't do the
But
vest.
for me, it could work because I'm never current.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, a nice blazer jacket
Yeah.
that's going to go for years and years. And
I call it
years.
Nashville casual.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
The T-shirt, or maybe just a button down with you wear your jeans, wear your nice boots. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, everything is perception. That's my feeling, and especially in entertainment that I work in. Everything is perception. Forget yes or no or real or fake. It's just what do people think is real? You know what I mean? And it's so fun. To me, it's fun to sort of play with that. You can play with people's expectations, because like put on a 3-piece suit and go to Walmart one day and see how different the experience is versus walking in a T-shirt.
That is very true.
And once like our culture has been trained from birth to react to people a certain way based on how they're dressed. And once you know that, then it's like this other language, you're sort of communicating in this unspoken language.
It's a subconscious.
Yeah. And you can play with that and you can use it to your advantage,
There's there was one time I did dress up in not a 3-piece, but a nice suit for a gig that I was doing, oddly enough, like background vocals.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a buddy of mine's band in Connecticut. And went to the bars afterwards. And it was a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, women were coming up and talking to me.
Yeah.
And it's just, I stood out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why don't I do this more often?
Right.
But,
Yeah. I mean, I had a friend of mine, this music journalist recently kind of, he posted a picture of Harry Styles and kind of made fun of him a little bit for what he was wearing. And I was like, you know what? You go into a room full of musicians and try to stand out. It's not easy, man. The fact that you're making fun of this guy's clothes, that's a win for him because you noticed him. You know what I mean?
It's like you either have to have like a physical attribute, muscular stature or height or something like that. And it's not, I guess, really all that important to me to stand out. I'm a drummer by nature, so I like sitting behind things. I mean, look at me. I'm sitting behind a whole bunch of stuff. I don't mind being on camera. I don't mind doing this is my jam. This is what I was meant to do. Yeah. Build podcasts, voiceover, and, spin a lot of plates while I'm conducting conversations, apparently. But getting back to this was in Ohio, you said you had that first gig at a bar.
Yeah.
So that was the game changer. I'm making a decision, and from here on out, every time I leave the house, I'm going to look like, okay, that guy's somebody.
Yeah, and it works. I mean, when you're in a room and there's that one famous person, and you wish you could think of a good conversation starter to go up and say hi because you love their work.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, that person comes and introduces themselves to me.
Nice.
It's rare that I have to go up and introduce myself to someone. Yeah. Which works for me. I'm naturally an introvert. I'm not a person that works a room, Yeah. So yeah, this is sort of my hello to the world, the way I dress.
If I'm in a room like that and there's high profile people and there's somebody I want to meet, I'll go up to him and be like, hey, this guy over here told me that you wanted to meet me. So what's up?
Hey, that's a good end. Like, you owe me money.
What guy?
Yeah.
That guy over there.
That guy.
You're not pointing to anybody. It's kind of ambiguous.
It's Tony.
Well, anyway, neither here nor there. My name is Jim. How are you doing? Good to meet you. I actually did that with Kix Brooks. I ran into him at Vandy. There was a Vandy game going on many, many years ago. And I saw him and I'm like, oh, we had just been to his winery, whose name I can't think of. My gosh. Anyway, he's got a winery out in College Grove in Tennessee. I can't think of the name, of course. We'll come to it. It'll come to me during this podcast.
All right.
So he was walking around. I recognized, people were pointing him out. So I went right up to him, tapped him on the shoulder. I'm like, hey, and he's like, hey, I have no idea who you are. I said, I love your wine. He goes, so he was anticipating me going, I love your music, something like that. I said, no, I've been to your winery. It's awesome. Mm-hmm. I really enjoy it. And actually, we bought a couple of bottles. My wife's pregnant. We're not going to crack them until she has the kid.
Right.
And he's like, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Not a problem. Off on your way. Have a great game.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So it works. I'll use the wine thing. I love your wine.
I love what wine? But isn't that the truth with anything, though? If you want to meet somebody, to be more interested in them.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, it's nice when people like what you do.
Yeah.
It's rare that somebody doesn't want to hear that. You know?
Especially when you forget the name of their winery and stuff. And, yeah. To my credit here, you're not thinking of it either, buddy. So it's like on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about.
The winery. It's gosh, I'm going to look it up now. So getting out there, you actually went to LA at some point as well, right?
Yeah, I moved here for a little bit. That's when I first met Rich, and we played in a band together. I think that was in 2002. And we ended up getting a little record deal for this band we had, and we went to LA and made a record. And I stayed, and he stayed here. And he went on to great fame. And that's when I got more into the production side of music when I was out there. So I was out in LA about 15 years. Then I came back here.
See, being in the production and music side of things was similar to me coming up in radio, because that's what we used a lot for our client commercials, imaging and stuff like that. Did you produce music like that for radio stations to use, or?
Occasionally, yeah. Mostly what I did was jingles when it came to radio stations for products. I really got into it just because it was sort of like a series of failures. Like my band was kind of LA famous, but we never got famous anywhere else, but we were just famous enough in LA to where music supervisors were approaching and saying, hey, will you write a jingle for this campaign we're doing, And so the first one we did was for Comcast, I think. And that went really well. And suddenly I had money in my pocket, which I had never had before. I was an ostensibly signed artist, and I had never made a single nickel from being a signed artist. And so basically it was just a path that opened to me that I wasn't looking for. I didn't even really know about it. And
that it was a thing at that point.
Yeah, and
doing production music.
Yeah. So they just kept asking, and I kept doing it. And I didn't know things like how to produce music. I didn't know about like what Pro Tools was or anything like that, because somebody else was always pressing buttons for me.
Right.
So I had a big learning curve to overcome. And then eventually I decided to just go all in, and then I enrolled in college and studied music, to be more of a musician, because I was realizing I was only getting called when they wanted a piece of music that sounded like what I already did, and if I wanted to make this a career, I had to, spread out and learn how to, write for an orchestra or a jazz group or whatever, so yeah, I spent a few years in school learning how to do all that stuff.
That's a lot of it is coming up with the sheet music charts, if you will, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Gosh, for orchestras, that must have taken a while.
Yeah, I'm still not good at that part.
Really? Yeah.
But I contract out. Like if I can get like 80% there, right. But I'll contract to someone that really knows what they're doing to do that.
But the ideation and the concept of the melody and the structure, you pretty much know that.
Yeah, I know all that stuff, and I've put it to picture. I know how it's gonna work with the film or the commercial or whatever. But as far as making it really orchestral, there's just so many nuances with each instrument, and a great orchestrator knows that. I don't know all that, so
right.
It's me knowing my limitations pretty much.
Does your garage door sound like this? If it does, it's screaming for help. Call Incredible Doors, 931-348-DOOR. We're making garage doors in Murray and Williamson counties work better, sound better, and, well, spring better. We just make them incredible again. Incredible Doors in Spring Hill. When your door's springs break, you need remote reconnections, opener installation, or just about anything to do with your garage door, go to IncredibleDoors.com or call 931-348-DOOR. Follow us on Facebook for specials on maintenance visits, keypads, and other items. 931-348-DOOR.
But by trade, you're a mainly pianist, keyboardist, is a little bit of guitar?
Mainly guitar.
Mainly Guitar. Yes.
Yeah, that was my first instrument. Really, what I get hired most to do is sing. So I sing a lot of jingles. I think that's why I started getting hired in the early days, is because I was a producer that could also do the singing, so they didn't have to pay two people. So yeah, I got a lot of gigs that way.
Right.
You know. Yeah.
You bring the thunder, apparently.
That's right.
You can hear in the background.
Yeah.
So you're out in LA. So you kind of, LA was, you're cutting your teeth in a way. Of all places to cut your teeth.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness.
Yeah. Well, when I got to Nashville originally, I found it very closed.
Good old boy network kind of thing.
Yeah. And it wasn't, and they just didn't care about what I was doing. There was not much rock music in Nashville at the time.
Right.
I mean, there was, but nobody cared about it.
This is 02, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rich and I had this pretty cool band, but it's just, nobody really cared what we were doing here. So when we signed with the management company in LA, we put out the record in LA, and LA sort of rolled out the red carpet for me in a way that Nashville never did. So. And it was a town where I was a very ambitious guy. This was my 20s. And it was a town that kind of rewards ambition. Like, you can't be too ambitious in LA. That's just how the town works. You know? Where I felt like here, there was a little bit of suspicion. Like who's this guy think he is, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I was able to go there and just go,
do your thing.
Yeah, just go for it. And it worked out.
And eventually Nashville caught up.
Yeah. Nashville, it kind of, it changed to suit me a little bit more.
Right.
I don't know how natives would think about that, but it sort of somehow became more applicable to me at a certain point.
I asked a very tongue-in-cheek question on one of the local community pages on Facebook recently. And it was, hey, how long how much time has to go by before you're considered a native of Tennessee? And they're like, you're not a native if you're not born here, idiot. That kind of keyboard warrior stuff. And I'm going, okay, let me rephrase the question. Till you're considered a Tennessean, because we had an ongoing joke when I moved to Vegas that it only takes you 6 months to become a native of Vegas because of the turnover and the transience of the city. Yeah. But I mean, Nashville certainly has experienced transience itself.
It has, and it's a boom town, Yeah. I mean, it's so much like LA and New York in that way, is where, it's rare to meet someone from Nashville, and it's made completely of people from other places,
Getting to be that way,
Yeah, so, I mean, LA, it's so rare to meet someone from LA.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there's 10, 15 million people in LA County, and it's rare to meet someone born there.
Now, how long are we out there?
About 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think the Southern California thing is it takes about 10 years to be an Angelino, is what they say, or same for New York, I believe. And it's they call them transplants. We were all transplants in LA, and I feel like it's pretty much the same here now.
Yeah. But you kind of got your business acumen out there. You figured out what your thing's going to be, what concept, what word you were going to own in the mind of your prospect, kind of thing, and yeah. So the production music aspect of it is what your thing is, whether custom or just one-offs here and there.
Mm-hmm. It is now, yeah. I mean, I sort of learned it all begrudgingly. Like I say, I was an artist. And I thought of myself as an artist, and for years it was sort of like, well, I'm doing this until the artist thing takes off, Yeah. And so I called it fancy failure for the longest time, just because it's like everybody, people were calling me asking for work, and I'm like, why would you call a failure asking for work? Like I failed at my goal, and it just seemed fancy because like I was on TV and I had, I had money in my pocket for, and from all those years of struggling. And so it I'd say it was about 10 years there was a 10-year gap where I suddenly realized, like, wait, I made it. I've been successful for a while now. I just haven't realized it.
And it's funny how you look at it, though, because you got some jingling going on in your pocket, but it's not the ideal because it's not what you're wanting to do. But it's like, do you kind of look back on that time of your life and say, but at least I was working in the business? I don't have to wait tables. I don't have to dig ditches, pull wire, nothing like that. It was,
absolutely. I mean, and that was kind of the realization I came to. Hey, we do have some thunder out there.
I know.
That was the realization I came to. Was like, no matter what I thought my career was going to turn out like, the fact is I do have a career, you know. And
were you okay with that at that point?
I think I was, I got to a point where I think it was my age where I wasn't chasing notoriety anymore, and, as an artist, songwriter guy, that's sort of the thing. You want that sort of adoration. Right. You want people to say, wow, like when you play something. And, and to be fair, people did like what I was doing. It was just in this other realm,
Right.
So,
but I mean, but the adulation's not really there unless, because it's not those guys. Those guys are the ones who still get the awards. Yeah. But they don't get to be part of the televised broadcast. Right. Right. But you're still getting the award. It's still kind of cool.
I mean, what am I trying to say here? It's one of those things where, you're trying to be grateful in the moment, but you're also like, but this isn't what I was after, know? Right. And so you're trying to balance those two things.
Well, you still there's a practicality element that kind of sneaks in. The same thing for me with the radio. It's like, I always wanted to be like a morning guy somewhere. Mm-hmm. That was the high profile gig where you'd get the adoration, recognition, stuff like that, if you were good. But now we have podcasting and anybody can be a radio star at this point.
Right.
But I was okay being in the production room.
Yeah.
Doing the voiceovers, the imaging, that was my I loved it. I'm like, I don't need to be, in the spotlight as much as I thought I wanted.
Okay. Well, that's good because I didn't like it at first. No. The whole production thing was something I had to learn to like, really. I like I say, I learned it begrudgingly just because I needed to do it. And when I first started doing jingles and things, I would hire out engineers and producers like I was making a record, because that's the way I always approached it. And eventually, the budgets for commercials started shrinking, and it got to where I just wasn't going to make any money unless I learned to do it myself.
Yeah.
And so I was sort of backed into it, but now I love it. It's fascinating to me.
But I mean, at the same time, it gives you license to pursue the artist thing should it ever break,
Yeah, I mean, it does. I just
pays the bills.
I just made a record, and it looks like I have a little record deal for it. So, I still get to do that thing, you know.
Yeah. Because you were also coming up at the time where they were trying to figure out what to do with Napster. That time. My goodness.
Yeah. There was sort of a little bidding war going on for my band when I first got to LA, and it was when everything was collapsing.
Yeah.
And and these were with major labels. Every meeting we had went the same way, where they kept saying, we're looking for the next Nirvana.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like, oh, you're looking for a phenomenon. You're not, like, you don't have a plan. Yeah. Like, this is all going down the toilet, Like, you're looking for some sort of messiah figure to change everything. Like,
and that conversation's been coming up a lot lately.
Yeah.
Or at least that topic in several conversations. I've been bringing that up as an example. A lot of people know they talk about the book Pendulum on the podcast a lot. Mm-hmm. It's basically, to sum it up, it's about societal and cultural shifts that go on a pendulum swing over the course of 40 years, going from one extreme to the other, back and forth. And around that time that Nirvana hit it big, you remember it like it almost was overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like everybody that ate up Nirvana was tired of the hairband glam, and all those poor hair bands that thought they had made it. They were just like the RC Colas of that category,
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was such when I work with young musicians, it's kind of hard to explain to them what happened then, because it wasn't just that Nirvana got big, it was that the entire culture changed.
It did.
And
the messaging of the music changed. I mean, I want real, I want authentic. It has to resonate with where I feel like I am. That, there were kids that grew up in the glam rock era that felt inadequate. But, they were like, okay, I'm inadequate because these guys are just,
right.
They're like animal versions of themselves kind of thing.
Well, that's when I came up. That's when I started playing guitar. I was a young pup when the hair thing was going on, and it seemed untouchable to me was the thing. But, also it seemed like, okay, hair metal has run out of ideas.
It really has.
And like the hair got as big as it could get. The spandex got as tight as it could get.
That's right.
The lights got as bright. Everything got like...
Guys are running out of cucumbers, fresh cucumbers. Yeah.
It's like, we've taken this as far as it could go,
Right.
So when someone comes along in just a dirty T-shirt and just, okay, that sounds different, and it's just raw and nasty. It's like, oh, well, of course it got big, but,
It was primal.
Yeah,
and it's like, it's funny because there's a documentary, Dirty Pop, I think it's on. It might be Amazon or Netflix, but it's about Lewis Pearlman, who did Backstreet Boys and all the boy bands. He he summed it up, like he reaffirmed everything I always kind of look at. You look at Nirvana, you look at Soundgarden, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, those were the big three, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, with the grunge era?
Oh, sure.
Soundgarden being a lot more technically proficient. But Pearl Jam being a lot more streamlined rock, Nirvana just being, in my opinion, a train wreck. But they were the Coke, Pepsi.
Yeah.
They were the big three.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Pearl Jam to me was, I never really got on board with Pearl Jam. It was like, well, I have, I've heard Leonard Skinner. I grew up in Ohio, but but the grunge was just it was something new. It was a new word for us. And all my friends, we were all like punk rockers. We weren't the cool kids, and so we were astonished, that all the cool kids in school now wanted to talk to us about our record collections, basically.
Wow,
I was getting beat up in school one week, and then the next week, all the jocks were at my shows, and so it was a strange time for me.
That was right around my high school formative years, 91 to 93. That's when I started becoming much more of a polished musician as a drummer, if those two can coexist. But I was more into Metallica at the time. They'd done the Black Album in 91. I got really into Lars of all things, but I was like a heavy metal, thrash, speed metal guy. So I used to torture my parents in the basement.
Oh man, you practiced in the basement?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I woodshedded, buddy. Yeah. And then I was part of in the mid 90s, if you remember. The music business had no idea where to go. It was just in flux.
Yeah.
From probably 94 to 96, 97, rock radio, before it was like as we knew it as active rock radio back, I think that term was coined in 96. It was, Butthole Surfers, Smashing Pumpkins. It was just the record companies going, throw it against the wall, see if it sticks.
Right.
I mean, it was all over the map. You remember that?
Yeah, and it was fun. I think because of that.
I agree.
I think
it was interesting music.
I think it kind of went downhill once all the so-called experts who knew the genre came in and sort of codified everything and homogenized it.
Right, which always happens.
Yeah, so the late 90s, early 2000s for me are like the darkest period of American music that I can remember.
But here, it's funny, you had, like, at the time of grunge, you still had Metallica that just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, well, that Black Album was amazing.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was back, is that the last vestige of albums that they spent 11 months in the studio?
Right.
Gosh, nobody does that anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's why the record sounds perfect to this day.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
It's like how many times I remember doing that documentary with Rich, And Tully had said something so poignant. He says, the thing is that it's the most anxiety-ridden process.
Yeah.
Mixing a song, it's listening to it and then listening to it again and then re-listening to it and then taking it home in the car and listening to it on the way back to the studio, listening to it some more, tweaking, and never knowing if you have it right.
Yeah, and you never do have it right. That's the thing, because 5 years from now, you'll go, why didn't I do that?
Right.
Why didn't I turn that one knob like 1 dB? That would have been so much better.
You think like Survivor, or like, man, we should have turned down the tambourine in Eye of the Tiger. It's like the loudest tambourine in music ever.
Yeah. As an engineer, I can tell you tambourines are just the devil's instrument.
Really?
I mean, God, it doesn't matter how quiet you hit them. They're just spiking and peaking. And,
Right.
Oh, my God.
So you get into the 90s and everything. I love this, talking about music in general, especially like this, and seeing other people that talk the same way. But Lou Pearlman, getting back to him, he equated the Backstreet Boys as Pepsi and NSYNC, or the Backstreet Boys as Coke, and the NSYNC as Pepsi. And I'm like,
Really?
that's a marketing mind right there. And he's like, well, I built the Coke brand. Now I want to build the Pepsi brand, which is what he did.
And he took 75%, right?
You know what? I'm conflicted about that. I don't know what the percentage he took was, but and I know those guys are conflicted with how things kind of panned out, because they were like, well, he's making all the money. I'm like, yeah, but he did a lot of the investing, pal. He was there for years before you hit it.
And, they didn't even create themselves, you know what I mean? Like, stylists were brought in, songwriters were brought in,
Yeah. And you've seen it where it's like, let's try him with the hat. Let's try him without the hat. Let's try him with this. Let's try him with that, And it takes time.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of emails that go back and forth in a major label about their haircuts, I'm sure, they probably spent thousands of dollars just deciding whether a haircut was right.
Oh, it's crazy.
And yeah,
But that's the genius in it, that could make or break a product, a brand.
Yeah. I mean, it's alien to me,
Right?
but on the other hand, it worked, right? Yeah. So who am I to say?
Who are any of us to say? So you're there for 15 years.
Yeah.
2002 to 2018, roughly.
Yeah. Somewhere about there.
So I met you right around the time you must have been here a year or so.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds about right. Yeah.
Did you and Rich keep in touch all that time?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Anytime he was in LA, we were in touch, and we've been great friends the whole time. And it's we reminisce. I think we've been playing together for 20 years now, something like that. Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
When I was in Vegas and we were entertaining the notion of coming to Nashville, because I was coming to work for Mix 92.9 and Jack FM, who brought me out here, I had the naivete. I don't know if it's naivete, but it's mainly the chutzpah, if you will, to reach out. I think I reached out to Eddie Bayers, and he actually did get back to me via email.
Oh, nice.
Say, hey, I'm kind of a hobbyist drummer, I kind of put the sticks down for the past couple of years, but hey, you never know, I'm coming to Nashville. I'll give it a shot.
Right.
And it's like, for anybody who makes their living at music, for somebody to come up in with such a, just like a very nonchalant approach like that. Oh, you'll give it a shot, really? I would have been like, yeah, I'm not answering that one, but he took the time to get back to me.
Oh, that's nice. I mean, maybe you found this too. It's astonishing who you can get to meet up with when you just say, hey, I'd love to buy you a cup of coffee.
That's crazy.
Or I'd love to buy you lunch.
Or I want you on my podcast.
Yeah.
Seriously, I've met a lot of people just by inviting them on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, people love to talk about themselves. I'm here, right?
Exactly.
But I've met a lot of people just saying, hey, I'd love to buy you a coffee sometime and ask you about the business.
Do you still find yourself doing that, even though you've been doing it now 2 decades?
Yeah, I still do it, just because there's always something I don't know, and there's like Nashville, for instance. There's a lot of people here that have done very well at things I don't know anything about.
Right.
So, I think it behooves me to just have as many conversations as I can.
Do people reach out to pick your brain as well?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, they do. And at first, going back to when I was talking about feeling like a failure. At first I found it a little off-putting. Like, why would you be, like a complete stranger reaching out to me? Like, how do I get in the business? Like, what business? Why would you want in this business?
Did you find yourself getting kind of like hard-hearted towards it for a while?
No, well,
Are you cynical?
I did get burnt out. I'll say that. There was years where I didn't have a day off, where, 3 or 4 years would go out and I just didn't have a day off, and Christmas and any of those days, I was working every day. And, there was years where I tallied up how much music I had written and produced that year. And like, wow, I did 700 pieces of music this year,
Wow.
and I got burnt, so, I was grateful for the work, I'll put it that way. But also I was sort of like, begrudgingly accepting it.
Right.
But it's, I wouldn't say I was hardened toward it because, I mean, what's the other option? I go back to driving a forklift, right?
Right.
Which I frankly wasn't that good at, and I didn't have a lot of aptitude for.
What's a mundane job that you just like, yeah, that sounds good? Like if you've got everything, you've achieved everything, big old pile of cash in the bank, you could just hang out. What's like a dream mundane job?
Gardener.
Yeah.
I'd love to be a gardener and have
There's still artistry to that, though.
Yeah, like a horticultural, what do they call them? A nursery. I'd love to have a nursery and design gardens.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
My brother and I were talking about, because he's a musician as well, and I keep on encouraging him to come down here to make a play.
Mm-hmm.
He's in his 50s. He's like, who would want me to go on a tour? I said, dude, it's a dream of yours you've always had. You'll be surrounding yourself with people who are better, that play better than you, which means only as long as you're open for growth, you're going to grow and expand and become larger and become better at what you do. He's been playing since he's 6 years old.
Yeah.
But everybody around him, where he is now in Michigan, he's the best person in the room.
Yeah.
So you're not going to grow
That's
that
a
way.
problem.
So, there's that aspect of it. I said, you got a successful law career. You can certainly bring that down here and make a go for it. And just see what happens. I said, I can certainly connect you with my contacts and get the ball rolling that way. And
why not?
It's just networking.
It is. I mean, it's like any other business in that respect.
It really is.
There's really no secret to it,
It's just getting out there, kissing babies, shaking hands, and shaking babies,
shaking babies. Yeah.
What did you find that you had to? Because a lot of the creative brain, I believe, is right, and or is that left?
Oh, I don't know. We're all out of our minds, I think is the point. Yeah.
Well, it's the business we're in. It's one of the toughest businesses out there, I think. But getting, having the business mindset as well as the creative mindset, was that a challenge?
That was a challenge, and it continues to be a challenge. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a person that's great at working a room, so I tend not to go to industry events unless there's an open bar.
Right.
So I can get a couple in me, then I can talk
Loosen
to people.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just at this thing in LA last week where it was like this mixer for music supervisors and composers and things like that. And it's not my natural habitat, but I have a thing that I do where I say to myself, like, okay, you're not the kind of person that can work a room, but for the next hour, just pretend that you are.
Yeah.
And it's
like acting.
Yeah. That's exactly
You're playing a role.
I am faking it. And so that's what I do. And it seems to work. I find that fake confidence works about as well as real confidence.
Yeah, I mean, it's putting on airs until you feel comfy around the room and you get to know people. I've always been, I guess, it's fair to say I'm an extrovert. But again, I don't know. I just kind of look at, what have I got to lose? Talk to somebody and have that confidence. I always did.
Yeah. Well, I was always a quiet kid. And so it's very much not in my nature to go out and do that. So I think that was really where the music came from, is that was my way to sort of connect with people.
That's how you communicated.
As a kid, yeah. And it was sort of my way of, breaking the ice and breaking down barriers. And it was something I felt confident about, So, yeah, the way, whether I'm right or left-brained, I don't know, but I I do know that, music or anywhere in the entertainment business it's all relationship based.
Yeah.
Maybe more so than other businesses, where you can, my dad was in manufacturing and he could do business with people he never met, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas me, I have to be in a room, I have to shake hands. They have to say that to themselves, like, hey, this guy has something, or whatever. And it's kind of all built on that,
Yeah.
and music it's also kind of a unique in that, even at the best of times, we're looking at like 90% unemployment in the music industry.
Yeah.
It's like most people are unemployed. Like it's always the worst case scenario, and so you're striving to be one of those lucky few that's making some money, and so, yeah, it all comes down to relationships because of that, I think.
Do you think it's a luck thing for you where you kind of hit the tail end of maybe the glory years of music, or at least the beginning of a transitory period?
Yeah.
'Cause I think we might be coming out of it.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I don't subscribe to the luck idea very much. I was lucky in some respects in that I was born when I was in a society where there was some value put on artistry, people pay money to go to movies and people, buy expensive television sets for their homes. So people put value on what I do. I think that's where the luck stopped though. I think the rest was just pig-headedness, I remember my dad saying, you got to have something to fall back on, because he wasn't a big believer in the be a musician.
Wasn't that their generation, though? We heard that so many times, too, my brother and I.
Yeah, and, my dad was a singer, but he became an adult. And it's like, well, I'm an adult now. I don't do that anymore. And so, and so, like, your parents' eyes don't light up when you say, hey, I'm going to be a musician. Like, oh, good.
Great.
Good. So I guess I'm going to be supporting you for the rest of my life, right?
So I guess we're not taking your room and turning it into a workout room. Damn it.
Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know what I was saying. Actually, I lost my train of thought.
No, I mean it was just talking about the perspective of going into music and hammering it out and just being unapologetic about making your way and finding your way. It's what Rich said many years ago, and I think of one of his talks was that look, there is a place for you in this business if you just persevere, if you last, if you just grind out, understanding that, I mean, I were to ask you, for anybody coming to town, a young buck, hard truths, like 3 to 5 hard truths they have to consider off the top of your head, what would they be?
Well, when I was coming up in my, anytime something would go wrong, one of my friends would drop out, like the tour was harder than we thought, the contract we were signing was not the greatest or whatever, I had this thing in my head that always went off that like the money's going to go to the last one standing. Just be the last one standing, just stick around.
Outlast everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that's a big part of it. It's just last longer than them.
Right.
Another one is, and this sounds counterintuitive, but the more you chase money, probably the farther away it's going to get, like at least in music. I find the more I concentrate on music, then the more money is in my pocket, the more I'm worried about doing something great. Yeah. When I get really caught up in like someone saying, okay, here's a big campaign, and if you get it, there's a lot of money, and if I get that dollar amount in my head, I lose it every time, like someone else comes in and gets it. And it's because I just forgot to make great music and I started worrying about money,
Right.
That was 2.
Yeah.
Have I learned more than 2 things in my career?
Well,
I don't know.
Sometimes things come back to us, circling them back to the beginning of the podcast, Arrington Vineyards.
Oh, right.
Kix Brooks Winery.
Arrington Vineyards.
Arrington Vineyards.
You've heard it here first,
That's
folks.
right. So you might have come up with 3 or 4 others, or numbers 3, 4, and 5. One of the things I always talk about with a lot of business owners, especially people getting into business, with all the gurus that are out there, coaches who coach coaches who coach coaches, and influencers, thought leaders that have taken over social media, a lot of them in the business space have a overnight success type of aura about them. Fake it till you make it. And I'm like, I've never been I've been a pretty direct, no BS guy. What you see is what you get. Can it be improved? Of course.
Right.
I just don't know where to begin. And in terms of fashion and stuff like that. So maybe the hat. I'm actually doing the old Angus, what's his name from AC/DC?
Angus Young.
Is it Angus Young? No, the singer. Brian Johnson.
Brian Johnson,
Yeah. Just growing out my locks in the back.
Yeah, it's working.
Bushy as it's ever been. But it's kind of this. I'm just doing me. This is what I do. This is who I am. And ultimately, for anybody coming into the business, I would say you got to give it 5 years to get some traction.
Yeah, I mean, I was in LA making a living. Really, I was there 10 years before I really felt like, okay, this is my tribe. Maybe that's another one. I feel you got to build your own tribe.
There you go.
Wherever you are. It doesn't pay to try to join somebody else's tribe. You know what I mean? Like when I came up, there was all these producers I loved, and if I could only work with them or whatever, and musicians I loved. But they have all their people already, so like building my own tribe was a big part of coming up,
Was it a tribe of people with experience or people that were like in the same realm you were?
Some of them had more experience than me, but mostly just like-minded people that were really hungry, that really we shared a certain sort of bloody-minded approach to the music business, where we were gonna. It's not like you try it and either you fail or succeed. It's just you go until you succeed kind of idea.
Yeah.
And so when I had my people around me, I think that's when I felt most confident. Like Rich. Rich was a sort of like-minded guy that I met early on in my career, and I think that's why we stayed pals all those years.
Yeah. Well, he's got a great attitude on life.
Yeah,
Very positive disposition.
I've literally gotten out of sessions and been like, "Ooh, I liked meeting that person, but I don't know how to follow up."
Yeah.
Oh, I know who would know how. I'll call Rich and ask him, and he'll tell me, like, okay, you do this. Hey, buddy, you do this, and it's fantastic. He's helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wonder if people get in their own way when they overcomplicate those types of processes. I mean, to a lot of episodes, I talk about my experience in the car business. I've always been kind of a natural salesperson to begin with, but that business really sharpened and refined the process for me, from the meet and greet to the trial close to closing to, the follow-up, asking for referrals, things of that nature, in a strategic and very comfortable to me way. And I think a lot of creatives miss out on that. They don't consider themselves to be salespeople.
No, we don't. And yeah, my career would be much further along if I did consider myself that way.
Right.
I make no bones about it. It could be a lot better if I, possess those skills. There's things about the entertainment world in general that kind of make you feel slimy, like asking for free tickets to a show, because you want to meet somebody, or like, hey, could you introduce me to so and so? A lot of people have no problem with that.
I use a technique of I put the out up front, and I've done this with Rich several times. Like, so you guys are playing over here at over in Manchester. It was a couple of years ago. I understand completely if you can't, but I have to ask.
Right?
Is there a way? And typically he'd be like, nah, just you and everybody else wants a ticket to that. Okay, not a problem. I'll pay for them.
Right.
And that's typically, I kind of float it that way.
Yeah.
I always give the out up front. I completely understand. You're not upsetting me, but me, I at least have to ask.
See, I always buy the ticket. I never ask.
Right.
I will say, hey, I'm coming to your show. Can we hang out afterwards?
Right. I'm that prick. I want to see it for free. I came from radio, man. I never paid for anything.
Yeah.
That was part of my compensation.
Well, and there's certain friends that every time they say, why did you buy a ticket? I'll put you on the list. Like, what?
Let's support you.
I can't ask it. Like we're all trying to make money. I gotta pay for my ticket.
That's what makes you a better human being than me. So. It's funny to me from my perspective, talking with you and knowing, at least in a small way, how the music business is right now, business-wise. Songwriters are being pinched and nickeled and dimed with streaming and stuff like that. Nobody's figured out the strategy for that. They're still heavily relying on royalties from airplay and spins on radio, which is a dying medium.
Right.
Despite all the romanticists that are still out there that are probably going to be unemployed or have already been unemployed, and mass in the last year. And it's a sad thing, and I don't like it, but it is what it is. Radio never kept up with technology, and they shot themselves in the foot, but that's a whole other story. But here you have the songwriters depending on it for their bread and butter, with an old, antiquated strategy that pays them big every time their song would play. But now everyone's going to streaming, and if your song, you got to get how many millions of spins on streaming to make what, $10?
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, there are those depressing times looking at the old ASCAP statement. We're like, wow, this track got spun 2 million times that last month.
Nice.
Here's $20.
Not nice.
So,
but I would imagine you're in a different position because you've got the production music game is a whole different animal.
It is different, and it is better, but it's also a shrinking thing. First of all, there's so much more content now that it's sort of devalued it in a certain way. Like, there's people just giving music away, essentially. You know, it's all gratis at this point. And
exposure.
Yeah. It's the TV equivalent of playing at your local coffee bar for exposure. It's first of all, it's not good exposure, and in every episode of television, there's like 90 pieces of music. Nobody says, "Hey, what was that one?" I'm going to spend hours of my life trying to track down this one piece of music. So, every year right now, nobody has a good answer. Right. I was saying to a friend the other day, it's like, I seem like I'm working harder for less money every year now. I think the only thing is volume at this point. It's just sheer numbers is what gets you money.
You think AI is going to be a threat?
I'm not so worried about AI. Yeah. Everybody I know is, but not me. The reason being, when people talk about AI and how scary it is, it's because you can type a prompt like, Nirvana sings a song about daffodils, right? Yeah. And it'll spit out something that sounds alarmingly like Nirvana singing a song about daffodils. And we say, oh no. But my thing is, Nirvana had to exist for that prompt to work, and AI doesn't have a point of view. So it's just pastiche. It's just a conglomeration of a lot of stuff out there, and it kind of globs it all together, and maybe you get something that sounds listenable, and probably you don't, I think for what I do, I don't worry about AI that much. In fact, I think eventually there's going to be an artist that comes along that it kind of clicks, and they're like, oh, I know how to use this tool to make something new, to make something really interesting, and it becomes a song, a piece of the music making process. Until then, it's just it's a novelty, really.
I think and getting back to the streaming conversation, I think at some point something's got to give. Mm-hmm. Because from what I'm hearing from certain songwriters who are very well embedded in the business here, and for a long time have been, they have real conversations with newcomers saying, hey, typically, we're not trying to chase you away, but here's the reality of the business. Mm-hmm. It doesn't pay like it used to. No. And a lot of these people are just packing up and going back where they came from. Yeah. And I'm wondering if that, hurts the quality of the songwriting. My business partner has an opposite viewpoint than I have. He believes it'll actually get better because songwriters will now be back to starving and struggling.
Yeah.
You know, which is in turn appealing to the human heart. And that is where great stuff comes from. Pain,
Yeah.
you know.
He has a point. My feeling is that, what is my feeling?
Arrington Vineyards. Check them out.
Arrington Vineyards.
They are a basically a surprise sponsor of this podcast.
Yes.
So let's talk about them for a couple minutes. And they got great wine. They got Shirazes. They've got some Cabernets. They're over there on a hill. You can enjoy them on the weekend and watch the sunset.
Sounds gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where were you?
I don't know. I was thinking about vineyards and sunsets and majestic grapevines spreading into the
Sit there
ether.
on
Yeah.
the side of the hill. A slight breeze hits the side of your face as the sky turns a rusty orange color and hue.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're gonna have to prompt me again. I don't know where the hell we are now.
I forgot too.
We're in the Napa Valley, or no? We're here in Tennessee making wine.
It's crazy, isn't
Yeah.
it? Crazy.
Yeah.
No, we were talking about just, you know, the streaming versus, you know, songwriting and
right,
quality of
yeah.
songwriters.
I mean, the truth is there is less money than there
Yeah.
used to be. The budgets for everything have shrunk. The last thing that was really holding on was commercials, and that's really shrunk in the past 5 years. And yeah, I think there's probably going to be a rebalance. You know, I think it might get a little less oversaturated. You know, now because just that pot of gold isn't so big anymore. You know.
And because people are paying, you know, $20 a month to stream anything they want.
Yeah, you know, and you know, right now there's just such an overabundance of music, of people making music. You know, like when I was a staff composer at a company, at a music house for a couple years in L.A., and we had a sort of open door policy where anybody could submit their stuff. And the thinking being that, you know, kids at home on their laptops could come up with some cool stuff. And that proved largely to be not true. You know, there was a lot more stuff, but the amount of good stuff didn't increase at all. You know, there's just so much noise to filter through at this point.
Yeah.
And I think if the pot of gold, like if the reward gets smaller, then, you know, maybe there'll be fewer people chasing it, so that, to essentially thin out the herd from the people that are interested, and then the people who are die hard, you know. So.
Would you be able to think maybe forging a model of, I want to be a songwriter, I want to be an artist, but I want nothing to do with streaming. I'm foregoing it. I am swearing it off. If you want my music, you come to this website. That's it. Mm-hmm. I've got my own distribution. Everything's right there. I got a new song. I mean, my son listens to artists that already do that. You know, I don't think they're streaming by any stretch of the imagination, but these guys are touring. Mm-hmm. They've got followings. They're doing the Taylor Swift thing where they're super engaging with their fans. Right. But a lot of their music is distributed through leaks, things of that nature. And I think they're still selling CDs, I want to say. I mean, they're buying vinyls again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a thing.
That's crazy to me.
it's a cool thing. Vinyl sounds cool. Yeah.
I mean, the kind of music that he's putting on these vinyls is not exactly my cup of tea, but that's the generational difference. Right. But he, this one particular artist, Glaive, has made, is making on a trajectory to make a really good living, I would imagine, but just bootstrapping it from what it feels like. I
feel like there has to be a way that can work because, when you think about the 60s where bands could have like a regional hit, you know what I mean? Like they could just tour, they could get on the radio stations locally and just tour regionally, and everybody, in this little tri-state area or whatever knows that group, and then you kind of expand out from that. I think there has to be a way to do that again,
payola.
Yeah.
Yeah, send a couple ounces of Coke to the boss jock on the local radio station, and he'll play your record.
Yeah, I don't know what the modern equivalent of the local radio station is.
That's what I mean. It's like, I mean, look at Dragon Force coming out of the weeds with a video game, Guitar Hero.
Right.
That put them on the map.
Yeah.
And then, a production piece that was used in the John Cena show, Peacemaker. And it's the opening salvo to the show, the opener. And I remember watching it. It's a really funny dance that they do with John Cena wearing the helmet and everything. They're doing these really ridiculous dance moves, but the music is pure 80s hair band.
Right.
And I'm going, I listened to it. I'm like, are these a real band? Was this a production piece? Turns out they're a real band.
Oh, yeah.
And they're named Wigwam. And I found out who they were. I'm like, I'll try them out, put them on the streaming, and then all of a sudden, all the songs on their last album, when I discovered them at the time, this is awesome. This is like refreshing to me.
Yeah.
It was just that kind of fun, upbeat music that had that edge, that hair band edge to it.
Yeah.
And now these guys are touring because of that one song.
I mean, it can happen,
right?
I mean, there's a lot of artists right now that they've learned how to work TikTok to their advantage, and I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
But in fact, I was having a meeting with a label last week about one of my things, and I was like, look, I can give you a fully finished record. I'll produce it and all that. The thing I don't know how to do is tell anybody about it because the rules have changed now.
Yeah.
So, you'll need to take that part, So,
it's got to be entertaining for those on the other side watching it, scrolling through TikTok and Instagram, and
I mean, there has to be some kind of visual equivalent to your song. When I was coming up, we would always say like, if they put on your demo tape and it doesn't grab them in 5 seconds, it's done. And I think now that it's the same, except there's a sort of visual representation that has to match that. In
3 seconds.
Yeah, when they're doom scrolling through TikTok or whatever, like that, there has to be some weird thing that pops up in half a second to go, oh, I'll keep watching this.
I mean, have you heard of the guy who he puts saxophone parts to songs that don't have them?
No.
He's like from Switzerland, one of those countries out there. And he lives in an apartment, and I guess he goes into like a stairwell, so he gets the natural reverb, and plays along to like Kelly Clarkson, any song that doesn't have saxophone. And it sounds amazing. It's just, I'm like, holy crap, why didn't you put saxophone in this? He is a phenomenon now.
Yeah.
Just a little gimmick. That's all it takes.
Yeah. I mean, there's buskers that are becoming, huge stars because some video went viral, and it's I mean, I find that part of it inspiring. Like you can cut through the noise if you just have something interesting,
And that's the thing is like for a while I did, I put out videos of me screwing up voiceovers, like tripping over words and messing up lines and everything. I'm like, well, that's something, I sound professional, but I'm still human. Right. And they did okay. I probably should have been consistent with it, but some of the voiceover people, their tactics are like, hey, try this, script. I'll read it first and you can try it. And they actually have it come up and people can practice to it. And,
oh, interesting.
Yeah. And it's a way to use the algorithms to stitch, I guess, some of the videos, but I'm like, well, that's curious. That's the thing about me is that my creativity is like out the window, It's all about providing for the family.
Oh, so, right. Yeah. That whole thing. Yeah. Real life and paying bills and all that.
I get my drum therapy here. I got my kid upstairs. And when everybody goes home, I freaking rail on those. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Do you play along with records or you just go free?
Like I used to?
Yeah.
My this is as pathetic of a dream as it sounds. It's my dream, so reserve your comment. Is to be in a tribute band of some sort. Like, even if I played in a cover band like it did in the 90s, that would just be fun. Especially in, like, a seaside dive bar.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And just have the ability to, okay, we're done with this gig. Break down my stuff and put it back into the RV that I own. And we're going to go on to the next show and just live our lives, like nomads. That's the dream. One of the opportunities is with a Huey Lewis and the News tribute band.
Oh, really?
And I was like, I compiled a bunch of different artists that I'd love to tribute. One of them was like AC/DC, but then I realized I'm like, well, after about 2 or 3 AC/DC songs, it's going to get really boring. Journey is there, but they're everywhere. Mm-hmm. Not too many Bon Jovi tributes that I could see. And they're needed now because poor guy can't sing anymore. But the Huey Lewis thing always kind of fascinated. I'm like, nobody's doing Huey. There's only like 4 or 5 bands in the country.
I'd look into that because I bet there's a lot of pent up love for Huey.
You'd be surprised. Mm-hmm. There is a band here locally.
Oh, really?
Heart of Rock and Roll, and I'm friends with those guys. I put it out there. I put these things out in the universe, and for some reason they always just come back. So I was in BNI one day, my business networking group, and this guy was my guest by proxy of somebody else. Said, "Hey, I'm going to connect him to you. He wants to visit. He's from California. He does flooring, but he's also in a band, and you're never going to guess what kind of band." Oh, really? He's in a Huey Lewis and News. Get the hell out of here. Really? And his brother is the Huey character. And he grew his hair out. He does all the moves. He even has the sunglasses, exact same brand and make.
Oh, really?
That Huey wore. And we went to see them at the Franklin Theater, and they crushed it.
Wow.
And I'm like, the drummer did a good job, but I'm like, I could do better. At least I think I can. So I've been woodshedding their music.
Oh, great.
A lot harder than I remember, though.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering because those were some pretty badass musicians that were in that band. Yeah,
very underrated.
Yeah,
very underrated. If you had to be like, okay, this is it, Jeremy, you got to make a decision. Okay. The rest of your life, you got to play in a tribute band, and you can do nothing else. And it's going to pay everything and above and beyond. You're going to have margin to live. What's the tribute band you're going to play in?
A tribute band. Ooh. I kind of did a tribute band at one point.
Yeah.
But that's a long story. But I went out with David Bowie's band for a while where I was singing David's songs and after he passed away.
Right.
And that's as close to a tribute band as I've ever been. What would I...
That's good. I want to take some thinking.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think of something I wouldn't get tired of playing.
Right.
which is hard to do because I get tired of everything. I would have fun in a Cure, a tribute band.
Interesting.
Just because the jams are long and kind of atmospheric. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I've never considered a tribute band before.
Would you rather a themed band or a tribute band?
Ooh, what's the difference?
So a themed band would be like Metal Shop or...
oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. That might be fun.
That would be fun. That's another kind of band I'd love to be in.
Just a straight metal band.
Yeah. Just playing like all the old, crazy Ozzy Osbourne and Alice in Chains.
Especially if I could do like thrash metal, like the Slayer stuff. That's
really?
Kind of all the metal that I was really into. Was
me too.
Slayer and Testament and all those bands.
They're freaking great.
Yeah.
And it's so fun. So we had soccer Saturdays. We take my daughter to play every Saturday to Franklin. And on the way up, we have to listen to all her music, which she's actually got a very good taste for music. Mm-hmm. A lot of these new female artists are really, talk about cyclical music coming back around. Yeah. One of them is named Laufey, I think her name is. It looks like it says Laufey, but I think it's Laufey. And she's almost like a Bjork.
Oh, really?
Better.
Wow.
And so one of the songs is like got this it's like a samba feel, right? And I'm going, well, that's it. I'm like, she's 12, and I go, you like this? She goes, I love this stuff.
Oh, wow.
So it's a mixture of that kind of thing, and of course a bunch of Taylor Swift. But I feel like I have to do a cleanse when I get to the soccer field.
Right.
So I have my headphones on. My wife is coaching her team, so both of them are on the other side of the field. I'm by myself, and I watch the game literally listening to like Anthrax, Slayer, Megadeth, all the
right.
Just to cleanse.
Yeah. There's a lot of Slayer in my earbuds when I'm at the gym to this day. Slayer gets a lot of rotation for me still, and Megadeth and Testament and All those groups.
I got away from those bands for a minute, and then I got reintroduced. Bad Religion was always a constant for me in my life. And then I got back to like Anthrax, and I'm like, the last album from Anthrax I listened to might have been The Sound of White Noise, and I was still in high school. So they come out with a bunch of stuff. Some of the stuff they came out with after was like, okay, it's a little weak, but they got their groove back at one point.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, oh, where have you guys been? This is great.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, Anthrax at their best was a great band. You know?
Oh, they're still a great band.
Yeah, yeah.
Rich and I saw them at the holy crap, not the Opry, but the Ryman.
Oh, that's right. I saw they. What a weird room to see them in.
Dude, I saw that advertised and I'm going, oh, take my money. Yeah. This is going to be, they're going to freaking tear this place apart.
Yeah.
It was a fun show.
Really? At the Ryman. Oh, man.
A freaking Ryman.
I thought about going, but I couldn't wrap my mind around watching them in the Ryman.
Right?
Yeah.
But it was Black Label Society and Hatebreed were the openers.
Yeah.
But Rich and I went. Of all people.
Yeah. Let's see. Last metal show I went to was Mastodon and Gojira played here last year.
I never listened to those guys.
Yeah, Mastodon makes some good records. I didn't care for the show, but Gojira is my favorite metal band in the world right now.
Really?
Yeah. They're the best thing since Metallica, if you ask me.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, later Metallica stuff I haven't listened to either. Probably anything since the Black Album. I'm like, okay, you know, we played a couple of hits here and there on the radio. They had the Bob Seger hit.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, they had the Lars using a trash can for a snare drum album, Saint Anger.
Yeah.
And then there was a couple of, like even their last album they put out, I gave it a shot and I'm like, this is not anything I'd go back and want to listen to again.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. A little too perfect for my taste, but it didn't thrash.
Yeah. You guys are kind of phoning it in at this point.
Oh.
So how do people find and follow you, my friend?
Well, they find me the usual places. Instagram, I'm under GoGo Jermo. That's probably the best way. There is a jeremylittlemusic.com. And there's contact info on there.
There you go.
Both of those things.
All your socials?
Yeah, all the social stuff.
jeremylittlemusic.com.
All right.
Where you're not going to get a little music, you're going to get a lot of music.
So much.
See, sometimes the creativity comes back.
That's right.
In the form of dad jokes.
Hey.
But there you go. Check him out there, jeremylittlemusic.com. Find him on Instagram at GoGoJeremo. But I believe all the Instagram handles will be at the website. Like I said, jeremylittlemusic.com. Go there and check out more of his music. And it's good stuff because he's been doing it a long time and he's put his time and talent and everything on the line. And it's crazy, man. And definitely find and follow us if you like the episode or you think somebody should be on the episode, especially if they're a Middle Tennessee entrepreneur, business owner, professional. Send them to MMTBP.com. There's a link there where they can apply. It lets me know. Make sure they're from here because I get a lot of people that are like, hey, we love your show and blah, blah, blah. And I've got somebody in mind for you. Great. Where are they from? They're from Wyoming. No, you obviously don't listen to the show. And it's evident. So check them out. MMTBP.com. Subscribe, rate, follow, share, all that good stuff. Jeremy, great conversation, pal.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jim.